Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. So I've had the privilege of playing through both the first closed beta as well as the second closed beta for Zenless Zone Zero. And I'm going to give you guys my full and honest and complete review of the second closed beta for Zenless Zone Zero. So Zenless Zone Zero is the newest upcoming game from Hoyoverse, obviously the same makers of Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Honkai Impact 3rd, and if I had to guess, it's likely going to come in the first half of 2024, but we'll just have to see. I'm going to be going over literally everything that I can think of when it comes to this game, so this video might be a bit long, a bit less editing than usual, because really I just wanted to give you guys as much of a holistic perspective on what we can expect from Zenless Zone Zero when it actually does come out. But really quick, I've got the perfect sponsor for you all today, Watcher of Realms. Watcher of Realms is an epic next-gen fantasy RPG where a new experience awaits. Collect over 100 awesome heroes to make countless different teams. Heroes like a terribly sunburnt man and an adorable two-headed monster. And of course, countless majestic waifus, where you'll put your favorite band of misfits against insane boss fights like massive dragons and stone golems. And unlike other cheap knockoffs with stagnant turn-based gameplay, Watcher of Realms combines epic card battling with real-time, as you frantically throw meteors, lightning storms, and other death-inducing abilities at your enemies. Timing is crucial and knowledge is necessary to master this easy-to-pick-up yet hard-to-master game. And right now is the perfect time to start with the holiday season, as you'll be showered with rewards and funny Santa hats. You'll get a free legendary hero, free skins, and for returning players, free rare resources. Choose your camp and compete for team honors in this epic holiday showdown. Just smash that link down below to get started with Watcher of Realms, where a new experience awaits. So how much have I played this? I've played this a decent amount. I've gotten one team just up to level 50. I've got one character reasonably built with some decent gear, and then the other two don't really have any gear, but they are leveled up to 50. So I haven't quite fully finished the closed beta 2, but I've gotten to the point where I can pretty much say, yeah, I've done pretty much everything, but now, you know, what's left is just a little bit more difficulty, a little bit more difficult content, which with enough grinding, I'm sure I can complete it. So with that out of the way, let's start with the great of this game, and we can actually just start by looking at the NPCs, and really I want to talk about the character designs of Zenless Zone Zero, and it's actually quite remarkable in my opinion. I mean, every NPC in this game actually looks like their own individual character, and in many animes they could even be the MC. And I absolutely love that about Zenless Zone Zero, how every character that you see looks unique, looks like their own little person, and it's not just like a bunch of copy and paste, like honestly Genshin Impact NPCs. A lot of them just look really the same with all the other NPCs. You know, you just got this random anxious public security officer, and she looks amazing as a random NPC. And you might be surprised to see me actually choose the male MC. Usually I pick the female MCs, but in this case, I figured, well, on release, I'm going to play the female MC, so I figured, hey, let's experience it as the male MC. Now, what else about the visuals that really stand out is that the animations are all very bouncy. You can see that when Wise, who is the name of the male MC, is walking around, you can see that he kind of has his own little bounce. He's got all these subtle little animations that make him look great, but at the same time, while it looks great, it does cause some inefficiencies. Like look, when I want to take a picture, I press R. You can see how he takes out the camera and puts away the camera, which kind of leads to some sluggish, slowish movement when you perform certain actions. But I think that it's worth the improved fidelity of the character feel in terms of like how snappy and or in terms of how realistic it is. I personally think overall it's a net positive in comparison to a net negative. So there's just a lot of little details though that really make this game just feel really good. Like you can see this little Bangbu right here, he's just bouncing, and you can see the little gentle sway of the characters. Just like you can tell how much detail they put into all the little things of this game that really make it feel like it comes so much more alive than even games like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. Let's take a look at some more of the design portion of this game. We can see that, you know, it's a lot of fun. Honestly, you can spend quite a lot of time just having your character shift between their build aspects, and they just have like a lot of character, a lot of animation in terms of just like them spinning around, showing off their assets and goods. Like if we take a look at Nicole, who unfortunately has been going through some drama, but in my opinion, she still looks absolutely fantastic. But we can see that she did not have her belly button removed, unlike many other Hoyoverse characters, so that is great to see. You love to see it. And we have currently the Shark Girl, Ellen Jo. She is an incredible character, probably one of the better DPS characters in the closed beta 2. Now, one more bit of feedback that it's great to see that that Hoyoverse actually listened to the player base when it came to the closed beta 1 feedback, was that the MC that you select barely had any dialogue lines, and you would always hear the other characters' dialogue, because in this game, actually both the siblings, the girl and the boy, are present in the game regardless of who you select. And because, you know, you select, let's say I select Wise in this case, the girl would end up taking the role of explaining everything, especially in the previous closed beta. But in this version, closed beta 2, now the character that you select also has a lot of voice lines. They put in a lot of effort to actually give the character that you select probably roughly the same amount of voice lines as the other sibling that you didn't select. And that's great to see. This is clearly feedback that they listened to and that they ended up implementing. Another great aspect is the immersion of it. Now, can also be seen as a downside. For example, this is a character that you can obviously play as, Nicole, but unfortunately, I can't really use Nicole in the overworld, but I can definitely see her and interact with her like this, which is really great. And also, it has its drawbacks too, because you're not really always using the characters that you end up pulling for the gacha. Instead, in the overworld, you are generally using your main character. In fact, you're always using your main character. Now let's talk a bit about the combat in this game. The combat in this game is very snappy and fast-paced, as you can see, and there's a lot of different mechanics, and every character actually has kind of their own move list. Characters also have kind of enhanced or X special attack, like this one that you saw, and character swapping feels really snappy. And what's also really cool about this is that while your characters are doing an animation, or for example a longer attack like this one, you can actually swap during it, and you can see that the previous character is still doing their attack, which is really cool to see and adds another layer of depth and complexity to the combat in Zenless Zone Zero. Now, one thing about Zenless Zone Zero is that sometimes the auto-targeting is pretty insane, as sometimes characters will just snap across the entire screen to hit the enemy, which is fine. And this actually goes into the next topic as well, which we'll talk about soon, but it is the mobile experience. This game's combat feels incredible on mobile in comparison to Genshin Impact in particular, where in my opinion it actually feels pretty bad to play, especially from a combat perspective on mobile. Another really important part about this game is dodging attacks, and you can see here that I just did a dodge counter. It's going to be extremely important for you to basically not get hit, and right here I did a parry attack. And now we've brought it into kind of a chain stun series of attacks where your characters will do a bunch of chain combos like this and do big damage to them. So there's a lot of really cool mechanics in this game in terms of the combat system, but what I can say, this isn't going to be a full tutorial on the combat system, because, you know, that needs a whole video on its own. But I did just want to just say the combat is this game's strong point, and it's an incredible part of this game. The combat is extremely fluid and feels really good to play. So yeah, now as we can see though, that brings me into my next point, which is the quality of life and this training mode. As you can see, I can set what enemy I want to, you know, practice against and to attack, as well as, you know, what I wanted to do. In this case, just stand here. This is going to be a godsend for people just testing their DPS, testing their skills, practicing, as well as theory crafters. This is an incredible gameplay mode that really needs to be implemented in Genshin Impact, in my opinion. Some kind of virtual training or just training session where you can just beat up on a dummy like this and practice, or for DPS tests and things like that. That is going to be incredible.
Thank you for your patience.
So I also did want to quickly talk about the mobile experience of this game. Now, I was traveling, which is why I had a pretty big lull period in terms of my video production. And in Taiwan, I was playing the closed beta. So honestly, a lot of my gameplay was on a mobile device. The combat in this game feels great on mobile. And one incredible part about Zenless Zone Zero is that the combat is client side. So that means that all of this damage that registers, it is all happening on your device and not on the servers, unlike in Genshin Impact, where there is a noticeable delay, especially if you have 100 or more ping, from when you hit an enemy to when they register the damage. Now in this game, where you need to dodge things like super snappy, and response time is incredibly important, you cannot rely on 100 plus ping. So that is why it is client side, because you really need to have really snappy swaps and dodges in order to deal with these enemies, because taking damage actually has consequences in this game, unlike in Genshin Impact or even Honkai Star Rail to an extent, because they're healers and there aren't really healers in Zenless Zone Zero. Actually, yeah, from what I can see, none of the characters actually heal. So if they ever actually release a healer, that's going to be pretty crazy for this game, because the entire meta of Zenless Zone Zero is to not get hit and not take damage, because if you do, that is effectively permanent damage on your character until you finish whatever the mission is. So yeah, basically the game is telling you to get good. So anyway, to wrap up this point, the game feels really good in terms of combat on mobile. However, one other part of the game doesn't feel quite as good is another key part of the game, which I will talk about later, and that is the TV/labyrinth mode of the game. Now, the next part I want to talk about is some of the issues that I have with this game. And one of the big ones is the early game and the story. So the story is good. I thoroughly enjoyed the story, but one big issue is that in the early game, you really feel like the combat is the side game to the TV mode as well as cutscenes. Honestly, in the early game, combat makes up like 20% of your experience in comparison to the dialogue, in comparison to navigating through the TVs, and the TVs. But we can see here that this thing has 3 clocks worth, which just means that you are going to spend a lot of time going through the various TVs, the TV labyrinth mode. And honestly, the TV labyrinth mode is one big reason why I haven't done a lot of the side quests and additional quests, is because you spend so much time navigating these TVs. And in this case, we got lucky with this mission. It looks like that we're actually going to start off in combat. And as we can see, there's just so much dialogue and stuff that you have to navigate through. Now, this TV section is very linear. I really wanted to show you guys the event TV section, because that was just insane. Like, the amount of TVs there, it was unbelievable. So anyway, we can see that we're just moving through here. And we can see that I can, I guess, sacrifice some of my character's health, which I will do. There we go, for a bunch of gear coins. There we go, beautiful. And we can see, though, that it is just very time consuming when it comes to navigating through all these TVs.
I'll take care of these for you.
And yeah, it's basically just the TV mode is basically just a massive 2D puzzle that is a serious time sink, and I don't feel like going through the TVs here for this demonstration. Really, you will spend a lot of your time in this game navigating through TVs and doing these 2D TV puzzles. Personally, I do kind of dread these portions of the game where I'm spending so much time just navigating these TVs. And while sometimes it's kind of fun, most of the time I just want to get out of it, get to the combat, or get to the next part of the story and move on. And one more thing about the TV section, you recall me mentioning earlier that the combat is client side, so there isn't really lag when it comes to that. However, that is not the case when it comes to the TV section. The TV section is server based. So that means that if you have high ping, navigating the TV sections is an even bigger slog than it already is. So when I was in Taiwan playing on the American servers, because my beta account is on the American servers, I don't know, I had like 300 ping or maybe even higher. Navigating through the TVs was so painful, as every time you click on a TV, there's a half a second delay before the character moves. And you know, you're just navigating through all these TVs constantly. And on mobile, you're trying to tap this, tap that. It is a big annoyance. But now that I'm here back in the States, it is much easier to actually play through the TV sections. And on keyboard, there are advantages because you can actually just mash WASD to move around, which makes it a lot more tenable in comparison to, in my opinion, on mobile, where you have to tap on each individual square, which does make it quite painful. Now, the sad reality of the early game is that you're probably spending about 80% of your time trapped in cutscenes and the TV portions, as well as in the overworld as well, just kind of talking to NPCs and stuff, and maybe like 20%, if I'm being generous, in actual combat. And all the early game combat is extremely easy as well. So yeah, I mean, honestly, the first 20 hours or so of the game, it's definitely super easy mode, and it's going to take some time to get through it before you kind of get to the more engaging and challenging combat modes. So do keep that in mind as you're progressing through the early game.
Flames, obey me!
That brings me into just briefly talking about the event. The event was all TVs. It was all TVs, no joke. Like, I spent probably 2 hours playing it, the event, and I just navigating through TVs endlessly. And the TV map in that was so huge, it's so confusing, it's too big. I completely lost patience with it and didn't even bother finishing the event on this beta because it was just way too much for me to personally deal with. And the combat was designed for lower adventure rank players, people maybe like adventure rank 20 or something, where the enemies ended up being like level 30 or whatever, and my level 50 characters were just completely dumpstering it. So the combat sections weren't even fun or engaging because ultimately, you know, you're way overpowered for it at level 50. So that means that it ended up just being a massive TV simulator that I couldn't even be bothered to finish. So I'm hoping to see the events be less like pure TV focused like that one was, because oh my god, that was just an insane amount of TVs. Another big issue is that while you're playing through the story, let's say that you have to take a break, your wife needs you, or your kid is crying or something, so you got to stop playing video games and you got to go up and deal with that. And I actually recorded a previous segment on this, so we'll let past I Win to Lose explain it to you guys a bit better than current I Win to Lose. So we can see here I've logged in after a long day at work and stuff, and I just want to spend my stamina real quick before I have to get to other responsibilities in my life. I'm at 180 out of 180 stamina, and as we can see, we are at the VR testing machine where we are able to actually quickly spend stamina. However, I'm mashing F here. We can see that it seems like he rotated here and he's trying to talk to it or something. But we can see here that Wise is just saying, oh, it's not time to do this. Now, why is it that I can't do this? Well, it's because I'm in the middle of a quest. And unlike most other MiHoYo games, I mean, as far as I'm aware, Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, you are still able to do things like spend your stamina or do other things besides just the main quest. Main quest takes like 30 minutes. I have to really spend like 30 minutes on this main quest in order to spend my stamina at the VR machine. But yeah, like you can't even spend your stamina in particular while you are in a story mission. So that means that if you're capped at 180 stamina, and you are in the middle of a story mission, you better be prepared to finish that story mission before you can even spend your stamina, and you will be overcapped and you won't be able to spend it, which is that's just perplexing to me that it's implemented that way, because people are obviously going to need to take a break, and it feels bad to overcap your stamina just because you cannot complete a story mission which can take up to 30 minutes. sometimes even longer before you reach a point where you can actually spend your stamina. So personally, I really hope to see that be addressed.
Thank you for your patience.
Now, let's talk about the characters and the gacha system in this game. This is going to be one of the most important parts, and I'm not quite sure how they plan to implement this on release. So if we look at the actual gacha, and I actually have a 10 pull ready, which, you know what, I'll do a 10 pull as well. So the gacha is pretty much the exact same as Genshin Impact with one key difference. And we can see here that the S ranks, which is just the 5-star characters in Genshin Impact, they have an included with the guarantee rate of 1.6, but most of the time you reach about 80 before you get your S rank character. We can see that A rank characters have a very similar system to Genshin Impact as well. And finally, we have B rank signals, which is just these literally completely useless W engines, equivalent to 3-star weapons in Genshin Impact. And we also have the Bang Boos as well, which is basically an additional little helper guy that provides massive buffs to your team. So you pull for both your 5-star characters and 4-star characters, or A rank characters and S rank characters. In this case, Ellen is the first featured S rank ice DPS character, and then we have 2 other featured A rank characters here in the background. Let's do a quick 10 pull just for fun. We can see the cool animations with the TVs here, and the TVs will light up with the rarities. And we can see here I only got 1 A rank, which is likely going to be a character. We can see we're getting some Bang Boos. We're going to get like a useless B rank engine. I'm going to press skip now because, yeah, we can just press skip. And we got an A rank, you know, ball thing, which is an engine. Now, what is the engine here? The engine is a weapon. So basically, what's in the gacha? You have your 5-star characters. You have your 5-star weapons, which I believe are in the gacha. Probably in the standard banner. We don't have a specific weapon banner yet, but I do expect to see that. And finally, we have Bang Boos. Now, Bang Boos are going to be the 3rd element to this game's likely gacha mechanic, because you can pull A rank and B rank Bang Boos from the gacha. There are also S rank Bang Boos, which we can take a look at right here. And these S rank Bang Boos are absolutely crazy. You can see this one provides 28% crit rate to Victoria Housekeeping Co. So these Bang Boos are going to be absolutely massive when it comes to how much they boost your team's damage. You can see this one boosts all ice damage by 25%. This one is just an A rank Bang Boo, so it's pretty much garbage in comparison to the S rank. Right, you can see 5% attack in comparison to 28% crit rate. So it's likely we're going to see some big pay to win elements when it comes to collecting these Bang Boos, which personally I'm not really looking forward to. A 3rd element of gacha, a 3rd layer to pull for in the gacha. I'm hoping that the Bang Boos are perhaps lumped in with the weapon banner and at a much higher elevated rate in comparison to, for example, Genshin Impact's weapon banner or Honkai Star Rail's light cone banners. Now, in terms of the currency that you get for pulling in this game, it is extremely generous in the beta. We can see here that every day you get 160, so every 10 days you get a 10 pull with 1,600 of these. And the weekly ones, you get 1,600 every week just from this alone, plus addition, which is another 10 pull every week. So that is a lot of pull currency, which is great to see. So perhaps by needing more currency to pull for Bang Boos, as well as for the weapon, or the W engines is what they're called in this game, it is compensated by the higher amount of currency that you actually get. And assuming that you just want to pull for characters, this will actually allow you to own a lot more characters and to skip, for example, the S rank Bang Boos and 5-star or S rank W engines, and more so focus on characters if that's something that you prefer to do. I'm hoping that they stick with this rough amount of rewards when it comes to the weekly currency that you get, because that would be absolutely huge and incredibly, well, I guess, generous when it comes to a Hoyoverse game, especially compared to Genshin Impact. I mean, let's not even talk about how many Primo Gems you get in Genshin Impact. Honkai Star was a little bit better. The last thing I want to talk about is the end game of Zenless Zone Zero, and I would say it is more similar to the simulated universe in Honkai Star Rail, where it's some kind of labyrinth mode, And at the very least, where my team was when I completed this, which I just hit level 50 with only Ellen, it was quite difficult to complete just the risk level none for Ellen. And the final boss of this was actually difficult, and I died to it once, where I had to learn its mechanics, and I actually had to learn how to survive before I was able to defeat it. And I can definitely see this being challenging for quite some time, similar to how Abyss 12 was challenging in Genshin Impact, especially upon release, as well as Memory of Chaos 9 and 10 being quite difficult with Honkai Star Rail's release. But in both Honkai Star Rail as well as Genshin Impact, now both Abyss 12 as well as Memory of Chaos have become quite easy, in all honesty, as we've had more time to build up our accounts, and personally I can absolutely see that happening in Zenless Zone Zero as well. Once we've kind of fully built up our characters and teams, this should be quite manageable, and you can even increase the difficulty significantly like this for more of a challenge. So that's great to see that you have optional, very difficult content to do in this game. Now personally, I haven't quite had the time to grind out the characters in order to actually accomplish this, but people have already completed this. You can find videos of this on YouTube. This endgame mode actually does take a really long time, especially for now, as you have to navigate through 4 entire giant labyrinths, and the enemies are quite damaged sponges at this point in the game. So you do have to, not only do you have to navigate through a ton of TVs, you have to wail on some pretty thick enemies as well. At least in my first playthrough of this, it took me roughly 40 minutes of game time to complete it the very first time. So the end game does look promising, and especially with the ability to make things more difficult as you desire, that is an exciting prospect for players that do just want to quote unquote challenge themselves and to get good. This does provide them the opportunity to do so. Now this mode also does provide rewards, weekly rewards, where we can get some of this currency, we can get these Bang Boo modifiers which give you EXP, and we can just get some more stuff like that. And of course you can always grind out the lower difficulty ones if you are struggling or take too long to grind out this one. You can always do this one 3 times in order to claim all your weekly rewards, which is great to see, to have the option to just grind out the easier difficulties to still obtain all your rewards. The flexibility for challenging yourself as well as for everyone to just simply get the rewards. They struck a nice balance here in my opinion for Zenless Zone Zero, and I think they definitely did the right thing when it came to the end game for this game.
Flames, obey me!
So yeah, overall I think that Zenless Zone Zero is in a pretty decent state, and personally I think the biggest weakness is this game's early game, especially if you're the type to kind of rush through story modes, or if you just really want to experience more combat. The early game is definitely going to be a bit of a slog for you. The grass is greener on the other side once you're kind of done with the story, as well as a lot of the side quests and stuff like that. Once you actually get to the end game combat and the battles, especially in the highest difficulty zero mode, then you will be rewarded with a lot of more challenging and more engaging combat scenarios. Definitely post your questions down in the comments below. I'll try to answer some of them if I can, and certainly I'm sure that other viewers of this video will also answer questions as they see them. And let me know what you think about Zenless Zone Zero. Is it a game that you plan to play? What concerns and issues do you have with it so far from what you've seen? And what things are you looking forward to about Zenless Zone Zero? Do let us all know down in the comments below. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.